The silence of a sleeping suburb is never truly silent. It hums with the rhythmic breathing of thousands, the distant buzz of streetlights, and the hidden pulse of secrets tucked behind manicured lawns. But on a freezing Tuesday in November in the quiet heart of Oak Creek, that silence was shattered, not by a scream, but by a detail so small that the police walked right over it while the killer used it as a bridge to escape into the shadows. Imagine a crime scene where every forensic light, every yellow tape, and every seasoned detective points toward an obvious conclusion, only for a single discarded cigarette butt or a misplaced shadow to hold the entire truth. Tonight we dive into a case where justice wasn't blind but distracted, and where the most dangerous person in the room wasn't the one holding the knife but the one who knew exactly what the police would choose to ignore. The first thing Detective Miller noticed wasn't the blood. It was the smell of expensive, high-end vanilla candles burning in a house that was currently a slaughterhouse. 3:14 a.m. The front door of the Henderson estate stood wide open, swinging gently in the winter wind like a beckoning hand. Inside, the living room looked like a portrait of domestic bliss interrupted by a nightmare. Sarah Henderson lay on the Persian rug, her eyes wide, staring at a ceiling she would never see again. There was no sign of a struggle, no forced entry, and most importantly, no fingerprints. The police saw a professional hit. They saw a clean exit. They saw a robbery gone wrong. But they completely ignored the fact that the candles were lit after the heart had stopped beating. The killer didn't just kill. They stayed. They waited. They watched the life drain out of the room while enjoying the scent of vanilla. The police called it a non-essential detail. The killer called it his signature. To understand the horror, we must understand the victims. Sarah and David Henderson were the golden couple. David was a high-stakes defense attorney, a man who built a career on finding the tiny cracks in the law to let the guilty walk free. Sarah was a philanthropist, the kind of woman who remembered everyone's birthday and donated to every local charity. They lived in a fortress of glass and steel, protected by the latest security systems. On the surface, their life was a masterpiece. Beneath it, it was a minefield. David's client list was a who's who of the criminal underworld men who didn't take kindly to losing. But on that fateful night, David wasn't home. He was working late at the office, a detail that the police checked and double-checked. He had an alibi. He had receipts. He had security footage. But as any true crime enthusiast knows, an alibi is just a story told with conviction. The environment of Oak Creek was one of stifling safety, which made the brutality of Sarah's end even more jarring. It was a place where neighbors watched each other through ring cameras, yet somehow, on this night, every camera in a 3-block radius suffered a technical glitch. Let's reconstruct the night of the crime. Not as the police saw it, but as it actually unfolded. 11:30 p.m. Sarah is seen on her own home security footage, pouring a glass of wine. She looks relaxed. 11:45 p.m. The exterior cameras go dark. This is the moment the predator enters the perimeter. He doesn't climb a fence or break a window. He walks through the front door. He has a key. This is detail number 1 that the police brushed aside. How did a random intruder have a master key? The killer moves with a terrifying grace. He doesn't rush. He spends 10 minutes in the kitchen, just standing there, listening to the house breathe. He knows Sarah is in the master bedroom upstairs. He knows the dog has been drugged, another detail the police attributed to bad dog food. As he climbs the stairs, the floorboards don't even groan. He enters the bedroom. Sarah wakes up, but there is no time to scream. The attack is surgical, precise, and hauntingly quiet. But here is where it gets chilling. After the deed is done, the killer doesn't flee. He goes downstairs. He lights those vanilla candles. He sits in David's favorite leather chair. He stays for 2 hours. He watches the clock. He waits for the exact moment the police will be called. He isn't hiding from the law. He is orchestrating their arrival. When the lead investigator, Captain Vance, arrived, he fell into the trap perfectly. He saw the missing jewelry and declared it a robbery. He saw David's client list and assumed it was a revenge hit. But he ignored the domestic detail. In the trash can, there was a single crumpled receipt for a bouquet of lily delivered to the house that morning. The card was missing.
The police didn't think twice about it. Lily are common.
But Sarah was deathly allergic to Lily. Why would she have them in the house? Why would David send them? The killer knew this. He used the Lily to weaken her, to make her retreat to her room with a migraine, making her an easy target. The police also ignored the wet footprint. There was a single damp mark on the basement floor, near the water heater. It wasn't blood, it was just water. They assumed a pipe was leaking. In reality, the killer had hidden in the basement for 6 hours before the murder, and the condensation from the pipes had dripped onto his boots.
He wasn't a stranger. He was a tenant of the shadows.
3 weeks into the investigation, the case went cold. David Henderson was mourning publicly, his face plastered across every news station.
But a rookie forensic tech,
someone who hadn't been jaded by years of standard procedure, noticed something in the crime scene photos that everyone else missed. In the reflection of the glass coffee table, there was a small, digital clock. The time on the clock was 12:45 a.m. However, the official police report stated the power to the house had been cut at 11:45 p.m. If the power was out, why was the digital clock still glowing?
The answer was simple and devastating. The killer hadn't cut the power to the whole house. He had only cut the power to the security system using a specific bypass code that only the manufacturer or the homeowner would know. The glitch wasn't a glitch. It was a command. And the killer?
He didn't leave through the front door. He was still in the house when the police arrived. He walked out the back as the first sirens wailed, wearing a high-visibility vest, carrying a toolbox, looking exactly like a utility worker responding to a power outage call. The police actually waved him through the barricade. They looked at his vest, but they never looked at his face. Today, the Henderson case remains officially unsolved in the eyes of the state, though the local community knows the truth. David Henderson moved away 6 months later, inheriting a multi-million-dollar life insurance policy. No one was ever charged. The utility worker was never identified. The vanilla candles have long since burnt out, but the stench of a botched investigation lingers over Oak Creek. This wasn't a failure of technology. It was a failure of imagination. The police looked for a monster in a mask, while the killer was a man in a uniform, playing by the rules of the very system he was destroying. The detail they ignored. The glowing clock remains the silent witness to a perfect crime. It serves as a reminder that in the world of true crime, the most important clue isn't usually the one covered in blood. It's the one that looks like it belongs. As we close the file on this haunting case, one question remains. Was David Henderson a mastermind who hired a ghost? Or was he just a man who got lucky because the police were too lazy to look at a clock? And more importantly, if you were the detective on that scene, would you have noticed the smell of vanilla? Or would you have been too busy looking at the body? This case proves that the difference between a closed case and a dark case is often just a matter of seconds in a single, ignored detail. What do you think? Was the utility worker an accomplice, or the mastermind himself? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you found this deep dive chilling, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Dark Case Files. We unearth the secrets the authorities want to bury, one detail at a time. Turn on notifications so you never miss a descent into the dark.